I'd like to call to order the Hatfield Township Commissioners Workshop Meeting for November 13, 2019. Roll call.
President Zipfel.
Here.
Vice President Hughes.
Here.
Commissioner Andrus.
Here.
Commissioner Rogers.
Here.
Commissioner Thomas.
Here.
We have, if you can't tell, we have a very special evening tonight because we not only have a special item, special presentation, but in honor of Veterans Day, we have the North Penn Junior ROTC Color Guard with us. And I'd like to introduce a couple of the members who are with us, commanded by Cadet Lockery. Other cadets include Cadet Parmenter, Cadet Lockery as well, Cadet Green, and here along with Instructor Major Parmenter. With that, I'd ask if they lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Forward, march. Halt. Up. Ace. Colors.
United States of America.
Republic for which it stands.
Colors. Forward, march. Halt. Colors.
So they will be back in a moment, and I think the thank you goes to Vice President Hughes for having them come here for us this evening, and they'll be back shortly for a special item, and we'll talk about them at that time, but it is quite an honor to have them here, not only their loyalty and commitment and passion to their organization, but to our country. So with that, we will move on to approval of tonight's agenda. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Thomas.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rogers. All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we can move forward. Citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments on agenda items only? All right. Seeing no one run to the podium, we are going to do a couple of a quick consent items matter. Is there a motion entered to the record the consent items listed in your agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Rogers.
Second.
Second by Vice President Hughes. Those items include the police report for the month of October, the HTMA meeting minutes for September 10, 2019, and the HTMA monthly budget report for August and September 2019. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor of moving those into the record, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, those are moved into the record. All right, we have our special item, which I mentioned before. I'd like to bring...
Actually, Mr. President, sorry to interrupt, but the presenting the colors was the special
That
item.
was the special
Yes.
item. I'm sorry, I thought Major Jean Andre Parmenter was also going to speak, so my apologies.
All right.
So then we will take a moment now to thank these young men and women for not just coming here, but being a part of what is a fantastic organization. We're very proud of them. On behalf of the entire township, we want to say thank you to each of them. I think they deserve a round of applause. All right, we have some committee reports. First is Planning and Zoning Committee. Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you. We have a couple of items tonight. Land development, the Envision land use, 3515 Cowpath Road. Mr. Amy, take that.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Rogers. See if I can avoid breaking the microphone. The Envision Land Use Project is a project that I think most of the board is familiar with. This is approximately a 35-acre site along Township Line Road, right near the intersection of Township Line and Cowpath Roads. The property is Again, about 35 acres in area. It borders the old trolley right-of-way, it borders Cowpath Road, and has a small access out to Township Line Road. The property was the subject of a rezoning application and a text amendment. The result was to rezone the property to RA2. There was also a conditional use application to allow cluster development, which resulted in a plan showing 65 homes with approximately 9 acres of open space. The plan's been reviewed and recommended by the Montgomery County Planning Commission and the Hatfield Township Planning Commission. And the final plans have been reviewed by all of our reviewing agencies here locally and by the internal staff of the township. The applicant's here with his attorney and his engineer if there are any questions, and the project at this point is ready for the board to act next week.
Commissioners, only one other note. The final plan actually showed 63 units. There were 2 dropped in the meantime.
Correct. The resolution will be before you next week, be prepared by the solicitor's office, and if there are any questions at all, I'm sure the applicant would be happy to answer them for you.
Questions, comments? All right, hearing none, then I think what we'll have it done is move to the next agenda. Ken, is that right?
Yes, that will be on for next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday.
Correct.
Thank you. It was brief, but thank you for coming out.
Okay, item number 2 is land development of Poultry Homes, 40-foot and Welsh Road.
Yes, and this is another application that has a bit of a history with the township. This is approximately 100 acres of land located near the intersection of Welsh Road and 40-foot Road, adjacent to the Ralph's Corner Shopping Center. It is a lot of us know it as the Baum Farm. Property was the subject of a rezoning which resulted in a zoning district of MFE, multifamily elderly, and I think I have, here is not cooperating tonight. There we go. So the property has frontage on 40-foot road. It's a rectangular shaped property, approximately 100 acres in area. There are also approximately 10 acres of movie lots in the area that I was just describing, and those 10 acres are being dedicated by the applicant as part of this project. The application has been through the rezoning process, it's been through the land development process, received the recommendation from the County Planning Commission and the local Planning Commission. What you see, I think we had the sketch up there a moment ago. The sketch is very similar to the sketch that was presented during the rezoning process. It does differ in a couple of minor ways, mainly in that it shows fewer units than initially were proposed. There are approximately 50 fewer units than had been shown on the original plan. All the roads would be private roads. There is a clubhouse amenity. There are also walking trails shown through the project, and there is a rather substantial frontage improvement proposed for 40-foot road. And the applicant is also proposing some improvements to Clemens Park as a result of this project, and I think Mr. Bebro wanted to give you a little more of an explanation of what those improvements might be.
Sure, thanks, Ken. Commissioners, just a few things I wanted to point out to the residents and the board, just so everyone is aware. As part of this land development, the applicant has agreed to make some of the improvements that we've outlined in the Clemens Park Master Plan for Phase 1, specifically the current existing plan of Clemens Park, where the large basin and the driveway that runs through the basin currently. Applicant has agreed to remove that driveway, which was identified on the master plan for Phase 1, and then put the new driveway in here across the street from the driveway to Alderfers, and creating a safer and a better basin for stormwater management, along with parking facilities here and a public restroom here. So for the most part, all of the items identified in the first phase of the master plan that we've talked about at length for the last few years we'll be able to accomplish thanks to this land development and the applicant's willingness to contribute to one of our parks in the vicinity of this project. So we're pretty excited about getting that boost to this park that needs some attention, as well as Vice President Hughes mentioned a few weeks ago that as of last month, this park now went from 16 acres to 24. This 8-acre piece right here is now ownership of Hatfield Township, thanks to Clemens Food Group. So what was once a small community park can now be a larger park, and thanks to Pulte, we'll be able to have some more features there that people will be able to use. Wanted to point out too, just to specify what Ken had mentioned regarding the open space, this would be the roughly 10 acres of the movie lots that would belong to Hatfield Township as part of this land development. So in the last 2 weeks alone, Hatfield Township has increased open space by 18 acres now, which is significant. So two things I wanted the community and the board to be aware of.
Aaron, I'm sorry, I might have missed it. Was there a time frame for the improvements associated with Clemens Park?
Still working with the applicant to finalize that. We'll have a better time frame in the resolution that'll be considered by the board a week from now. A lot of it will depend on how quickly the units sell over time.
Okay, thank you.
I'll just point out that the applicant and his attorney and his engineer are here this evening. Again, if the board has any questions, I'm sure they'd be happy to help.
Questions, comments? All right, seeing none, then we will move that to our agenda. It's next Wednesday. We have 2 Wednesdays in a row, so thank you for coming out. Again, brief, but thanks for coming out to the meeting.
Okay, the third item tonight, I think everybody's waiting quite a while to have completed, is the Manon Road Properties, 3120 Penn Street, the former Finn McCool's location.
Another property with a bit of a history. This is a more checkered history for this property. The old Finn McCool's property, which is shown on the screen right now, the existing building is in pretty severe disrepair. And I think one of the bright notes that I can mention to the board is that we do have an application that was just submitted by the owners to demolish the Finn McCool's building. So that's in process right now. Hopefully that occurs relatively quickly. But the property is about 2.9 acres. It's in the RA1 district. It has existed for years as a non-conforming nightclub restaurant. It's been vacant for quite a while now, and the applicant has come in, went to the zoning hearing board, and got approval to change the non-conforming use from its current or past use to a new use, which would involve construction of 2 buildings, each of which would have 14 apartment units, so a total of 28 apartments. Access would be off of Penn Street. There is a bit of floodplain in the back of the property, which is being avoided during the construction, and all of the parking that's required is shown in front of the buildings. The rear yard of the apartment buildings would be clear of the floodplain, and then the floodplain is beyond, near the property line. Plans have been, again, they've been recommended by both the county and the local planning commission, and the solicitor's office will prepare a resolution for you for next week. The applicant is here along with his engineer, Bob Jordan, from Woodrow and Associates, if the board has any questions. Otherwise, this will be ready for you to act on next Wednesday.
I assume this is a conforming use then?
It's not a conforming use. It's a change of non-conforming use. The way our ordinance is set up, you can change from one non-conforming use to another if it's approved by the zoning hearing board and if they determine that the proposed use is less intense than the previous non-conforming use.
Will there be sidewalk installed in front of this?
Yes, the original plan did not show sidewalk, but it became clear during discussions with the Planning Commission and the Planning and Zoning Committee that sidewalks would be desired, and the applicant has agreed to show them on the final plan.
Any questions, comments? Have more next week. All right, we'll move it to next week's agenda. Thank you for coming out. Appreciate it.
Okay, the fourth item on the list is a lot line change. for 2837 Diamond Street.
Yes, this is a lot line change. It currently exists as two lots. It's on Diamond Street, two lots, one larger than the other, and the result of this subdivision would be to transfer a portion of one lot to the other, and it would result in two lots roughly the same size, both conforming lots in the RA1 district. So it takes one lot which is currently much smaller than the other. This is one lot as it currently exists. The other lot is much wider, and the result after this subdivision would be two lots which would be bisected by this line, and so it would be two roughly equal-sized lots. Again, both with single-family homes, no new constructions planned. It's simply a lot line adjustment to create a more equal-sized lots and more usable yard areas on the smaller lot. Once again, the project has been recommended for approval by both planning commissions and the Planning and Zoning Committee, and it will be ready for the board to act on next week. I believe Mr. Nuske is here this evening. Here we go.
Questions or comments? Seeing none, we're going to put you on next week's agenda. Encourage you to come out and appreciate your coming out tonight.
Okay, the last item tonight is the amended final approval for the Montellas Crossing 5.
Yes, this is, the board will, I'm sure, remember that this application was approved in June of this year for a new auto repair shop and two new tenant spaces on Walnut Street, being developed by Sal Mascarella, along with his other Montellas holdings out on Walnut Street. And during the course of preparation of the plans for recording, it was determined that two additional waivers were necessary for, I believe, for landscaping. Were they, Brian?
One was landscaping and the other's for the separation.
That's correct. We have a 15-foot separation requirement between parking and building area. So as it turned out, the final configuration of the building encroached into that 15-foot separation slightly. The fire marshal looked at it. He was fine with it, but there is also a minor landscape waiver that's necessary. So the intent then would be for the board to pass a revised resolution next Wednesday, which would reflect those two waivers.
All right. Any questions or comments on the last item? No? All right. Hearing none, seeing none, we'll move that to next week's agenda as well.
All we have tonight. Thank you.
All right. Public Works Committee, Vice President Hughes.
Just a reminder that the week of November 18th and December 2nd, the leaf pickup will be going on again throughout the township. And also, we're going to talk about the donation to the Hatfield Museum and History Society building, which is the Gottschall's former office there on Cowpath where the Giant is. So I guess Aaron will take us through that one.
Yeah, sure. Just quickly, thanks, Vice President Hughes. We've talked about this several times over the last year. The Hatfield Museum and History Society has requested, and the township has informally until next week would formally agree to a donation of $30,000 to the organization to help with capital improvements. $30,000 will also be matched by $30,000 from Hatfield Borough, and the museum itself has also already raised over $20,000 from private donations. So it was a nice partnership to get this building renovated and up and running, and I believe we're looking at most likely a spring opening. All invoices to all the improvements will be provided and have kept on file here for any auditing purposes. But this is a one-time donation to a building that is owned by the township, so all improvements will ultimately benefit Hatfield Township as well, and it's going to be a nice showcase for the community. So it's a one-time donation that will be formally approved next week as a motion. Then a check will be delivered after that.
And most of this money will be coming from the escrow that was there to tear down the house and make a park there?
Yep, thank you, Vice President Hughes. That was my other bullet point that I forgot about. I appreciate you saying that. Actually, all of the $30,000, none of that is taxpayer money. What that was money that was escrowed as for the land development in Snyder Square. Original plans called for that house to be demolished, and it was all the costs associated with the demolition of the house. So instead of obviously using it for that, the funds will come back to the township and then back to the Museum and History Society for improvements. So it is a no cost to the taxpayers, and thank you for bringing that up.
Of course, I could have probably tore the house down with no cost either, so.
Well, don't do it now.
That would not be good.
And that's all I have.
All right. Park and Recreation Committee, Commissioner Thomas.
Thank you, President Zipfeld. So we had another very successful mini Monster Mania in October. And I'd like to thank all the volunteers and folks who helped out with that. The kids really enjoyed it. Our American Girl Tea and History is, the next one is actually, we don't have a next one because Ashley did this when we were going to have a November 6th meeting. We had 3 of them. They were successful. They were Sunday, September 22nd, Sunday, October 27th, and Sunday, November 10th. So I'm sure she'll put that on the schedule again for next year. American Red Cross babysitting course. That also was Saturday, November 9th, from 9 to 3. Our Giving Tree program is back. As you saw when you walked in, there's a tree out there in the lobby, and you can and take an ornament from the tree. Each ornament contains a gift request from a local family in need. We ask that you return all gifts new and unwrapped to the Township building between November 13th and December 13th. The other thing we have going on is a bus trip. We're partnering again with Hatfield Township, and that's going to be the Christmas Spectacular Radio City Rockettes. That is Thursday, December 5th. It's in New York City. It's $140 per person for orchestra seating. It includes bus transportation and a show ticket, and you can register for that at www.hatfieldrec.com. Winter Wednesdays, December holiday pop-up shops. So join us for the first of the 3 mini pop-up events that we're going to have throughout the winter season. So when we get cabin fever, we have something to come out and do. Our first one will be a holiday bazaar, so you can shop for fun and unique gifts from local vendors and crafters, enjoy some seasonal beverages and treats, and don't forget to stop by the photo station. That will take place on Wednesday, December 11th from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., and it'll be here in the administration building. So the fee is a new and unwrapped toy to be donated. We also have Santa's Visit coming up. We're partnering with the police department, or the Benevolent Association, to bring a little bit of the North Pole to Hatfield. So you can visit Santa's workshop and participate in our Santa's Little Helpers activities, decorate holiday cards to keep or donate. You can make a holiday ornament. You can decorate your own tree. And you can play great games like reindeer bowling, help an elf, and pin the nose on the snowman. So be sure to bring your letters to Santa and wear your best smile for a photo opportunity. That takes place Saturday, December 14th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., and it's here in the Township Administration Building. And lastly, we have discount ski tickets throughout the winter season. You can purchase the tickets at the Township Administrative Building during normal business hours. There's a complete list of ski resorts on the Township website at hatfield.org, and payment must be in cash or check only. And that is all I have.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, under Public Safety, we have 4 different items. First is Berge Road truck restriction, cow path to Durstein. I think, Aaron, are you going to walk us through all 4 of these? But the
I
first
will,
one is
Mr.
yours.
President, all rather quickly for the most part. This one might take a little more time, number 1, but I would like to, 1 second.
You have a slide, I'm assuming.
I do. Thanks, Mr. President. So this is, I'd consider this more of a housekeeping item in that this restriction's already in place. It's been in place for 20-plus years. However, what we noticed in the past few weeks, thanks to the diligence of our police chief, was that there was never an ordinance approved to make this restriction official. The rules in the 80s were a little looser than they are now. So in the meantime, we had the McMahon and our traffic engineer do a formal study to look at the intersection to make sure that corridor still is an appropriate restriction for trucks, specifically this intersection. I had a new toy today with the graphics. I had to show it off. What the study found was that the restriction is completely appropriate and that the restriction should remain in this corridor, thankfully, because Chief specifically hears probably from half of those residents regularly, even providing pictures of trucks that are almost similar size coming down that street. And the police have been really good about responding and ticketing and working with the trucking agencies to hopefully stop using that route. But if the board is willing, what would need to do then to make this an official restriction is if we could have a motion to advertise the ordinance for this truck restriction, then we can move forward with the solicitor drafting the ordinance. We'll advertise it, and the board will probably be in a position to approve that ordinance then in December, consider approving it in December after all the advertising requirements have been met. But we've gone through what is required, and the study blatantly showed that, and the study was in the packet, showed that the restriction is still needed. If we could.
I'll make that motion to advertise that.
All right, so we have a motion to advertise the Berge Road truck restriction. Is there a second? Second. By everyone. Everyone seconded that. No, you can't write that down. We'll give it to Commissioner Thomas. And all in favor of that motion, which is to advertise as described, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is a budgeted item from the Fire Reserve Fund for the air packs. We had President Dean was actually here a few months ago showing off the ones for Hatfield Fire, Culmer Fire, and future Commissioner Greg Lees is here, who's a member of Culmer Fire as well. This was budgeted expense for $280,000, and thanks to the efforts of the leadership of the Culmer Fire, they're only requesting less than $70,000 because Culmer pursued grant funding and received funding for the remaining portion. So the local match was only just shy of $70,000, which will come out of the Fire Reserve Fund. And what was budgeted was $280,000. So a nice savings there, which will be certainly used elsewhere and for some bigger projects that we're going to be talking about here soon. The next item, and that will be formally approved next week. The next item is for a capital repair of the Hatfield Fire Station, which was not specifically budgeted, but we've talked to the leadership at Hatfield Fire, and we believe that we can pull this off in a way that does not increase any of the costs for Hatfield Township based on reducing some of the other expenditures that have already been budgeted. So we feel like that will be an expense neutral item next week as well, and we can explain the specifics once we finalize that. Next item would need a motion from the board, if you don't mind. It is to commence the process with civil service. We've done this several times. Just as a refresher to the community, Hatfield Township's a first-class township, so we follow all the guidelines of a civil service commission when it comes to hiring and firing and any disciplinary matters for police officers. Commissioners have budgeted to hire a new police officer in 2020, and then an additional police officer to replace a retiring officer in the spring. So the formal process is the commissioners begin the process, and then civil service takes it from there, and then the list comes back to the Board of Commissioners to make the ultimate promotions or hires. So this process is actually going to be to hire 2 officers, and then we'll be in a position in the spring for the commissioners to promote a corporal and to promote a sergeant within the police department as well. So if we could have just a motion, Mr. President, to commence the process to civil service to establish these lists, then they can go off and run before they bring it back to the board.
All right, is there such a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Andrews,
Second.
second by Commissioner Rogers. Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor of the motion which commences that process with the Civil Service Commission, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that is approved. Aaron, I think that's everything under public safety, is that right?
That's all, Mr. President. Thank you.
All right, one last committee item, and that is Finance Committee. Commissioner Andrus, I think you have some good news.
I do. It's very short, though. The last couple meetings, we talked about the budget. We're going to have a presentation on November 20th to talk about the budget for 2020, and that budget currently does not have any planned tax increase for
Short, sweet, and good news.
Right to the point.
It's gonna be
That's very good.
that's the opposite of what my presentation will be. That's great.
So let's take a motion to have Commissioner Andrus deliver the presentation.
Oh, there you
then.
go.
So next week's presentation
I'd
will
be
be
happy to
very
hear that.
brief.
I would make a motion for Mr. Hughes to do that if it makes it a little bit shorter.
That's true, that's true. All right,
But no tax increase. End of story, let's vote.
See you next year.
all right, staff reports. Is there any?
No
Staff
reports
reports?
tonight from the staff?
Nothing to report tonight.
Listeners report didn't even wait for me to jump in. Nothing to report?
Villanova's playing tonight, so.
Okay, so then we need to move it along, not only for me, but also for our beloved solicitor. All right, citizens' comments. Any citizens' comments on agenda items or otherwise? All right, I don't see anyone running to the dais, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Vice President Hughes, second by Commissioner Thomas. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing that we are adjourned, thanks for coming out, folks.